Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Newfoundland and Labrador NDP MP Ryan Cleary is well known in St. John's. He was a long-time award-winning journalist. He is outspoken and passionate. He's the proud father of 2 young boys, but he's equally proud about being a voice for his province in Ottawa. Ryan Cleary invited us to his riding of St. John's, South Mount Pearl for a visit and a chat, and I'm proud now to present our interview with Ryan Cleary on Beyond Politics. So you decided to up the stress load of an election by moving in the middle of an election to a new home.
It wasn't stressful enough.
No.
Running an election, we also had to move, literally move at the same time. So we purchased a house just down the street prior to the election call, prior to my decision to run.
Right, which is why it's 5 houses out of the riding?
It's 5 houses outside of the riding. I can see the riding. The riding at the boundary line is right in front of the meat store, the butcher just down the road.
Yeah.
The butcher shop.
Okay.
So we're 5 houses up, but we're going to sell now so I can move inside of the riding and
so
I don't take any flack for it.
Yeah, that's right. It's a pretty street.
Every time I open the door, there's usually a camera crew like there is now.
Oh, it's the paparazzi, the Newfoundland paparazzi?
No, it's Come From Way, CFA.
Oh.
They're taking pictures at the front of the house, and there's been at least 3 weddings. The pictures were taken in front of the house this past summer. So,
what's with the bright colors? Because it's all over St. John's. I mean, they're these houses that are painted these incredible colors, all different colors, one next to the other.
Well, you know,
the story?
There are a number of different stories about why they're different colors, but the story that sticks with me, I have a bit of fun with this one. It's about how years ago, when the gentlemen of St. John's would go down to George Street for a casual beverage.
Yeah.
Sometimes they drink a little too much. So they painted the homes different colors so they'd be able to find their own homes easier. So I could never get lost.
Mine's
lime
in
green
the neighbor's bed by accident.
I suppose, yeah.
So yours is green.
Mine's
not
green
orange.
with a red trim, and it's going to be painted now in the next few days. It's going to stay green, maybe a little lighter, with the red trim. And yeah, it's my house. It's 3 floors, and it's lovely.
You know, you talked about the fact that you bought the house before the election was called. And that seems to indicate that since it's not in the riding, you maybe weren't thinking about running. Had you decided that you firmly were not going to run in this election?
No, I was hemming and hawing. I had run in 2008, and I had come close. But the thing was, I was a journalist.
Right.
So after the 2008 election, I had trouble getting back into journalism because once you're tainted with a political color, it's hard going back because then you supposedly have a bias. So it was a tough decision for me because I was just getting back into journalism when the May 2nd election was called. And I only made up my mind, I'd say, 2 weeks prior to the writ being dropped. It was a tough decision because tougher for me than most because it was journalism, and once you make that leap, there's no going back. So it was tough.
So what actually sent you over the edge towards the decision to run? Because you are putting your career at jeopardy.
Not just my career too. So I've got 2 kids, 2 boys, and you know, how do you pay the bills? And what passion to make Newfoundland and Labrador a better place, to make sure we have a future, make sure I have a future for my children. I was a journalist for 20 years. There weren't any major stories over the past 20 years I hadn't covered. I know this place well inside out. I have a good idea of what it's going to take for us to get ahead, and it's passion to make sure we get there. That's what you know, it was made me make this decision to run.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've covered all these great stories and you've had an interesting 20 years in journalism, and it was probably a really fulfilling career for you.
It was.
Why, I guess I just wonder why you'd make a decision that's going to take you away from your kids, from the place that you love for a lot of the year, rather than just staying with a career that's interesting and invigorating and challenging, and doesn't matter where you live?
I was a newspaper man. I wrote stories. I wrote opinion pieces. I wrote columns. I was a radio host. I had an opinion about everything, and it comes a point, or there came a point in my career as a journalist where I wanted to put my words into action. I was sick of criticizing politicians for what they did or didn't do. I wanted to try it. I wanted to put my words into action. One of my biggest passions is the fishery, for example, and I'm following through on a lot of things that I wrote about as a journalist.
So what's it been like to move from being the person doing the critiquing to being the person being critiqued, or I ventured to say in some cases criticized, outright criticized?
That's a good question for you to ask the media, how they feel interviewing me when at one point I was at their side, you know, although I was never much into PAC journalism. I was more of a lone wolf. The change, in 2008 it was a big adjustment because everything I had written as a journalist, other journalists just went to the website of the newspaper that I worked for and typed in, say, NDP or whatever, and pulled out everything I had ever written about them.
And you hadn't necessarily made fantastically complimentary comments.
But it wasn't just about the NDP. It would have been about the Liberals or progressive conservatives or conservatives. I nailed them all.
Okay.
So that I took some heat for that. I took some flack for that, but I stood by what I had written in the context of how I had written it as a commentator. This is what I was paid to do, and I showed no favorites. It took some getting used to, and I took some flack for that in 2008. It was shoved in my face. Everywhere I went, there was a different quote, but not this time around. I think everybody was used to it then, and I got an easier ride.
You know, the time period between the 2008 election and the 2011 election, did you find as a journalist that you were being more careful about what you were saying because you were worried that you may run again?
No.
So you're just not someone who's ever all that careful?
No.
What you say?
My rule of thumb was, for example, if I was writing an opinion piece for my blog, my blog is called Fisherman's Road, for example. That's the road I grew up on. My rule of thumb for deciding how to write, what to write on, what topic to write on was, okay, what am I afraid to write about this week? Then I'd make sure I wrote about it.
Huh.
I always put my opinion out there. I try to tell it like it is. I like to think that's a big part of the reason why I got elected. People know that I am going to give my lay of the land. I'm not going to hold back, and I'm going to fight for Newfoundland and Labrador. People have a good idea who I am.
All right. Well, take me in out of this nice, chilly Newfoundland and Labrador weather.
Welcome to my humble lime green abode.
Yes, it is a humble color.
Oh.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
This is Chinook.
Hi, Chinook. Hey, Chinook. Oh, you're a beauty. Yes, you are. Hi, can I come in?
She just had 2 operations, so.
Uh-oh.
My name's Snooky.
It's an up and down kind of house.
It is, yeah. Well, 3 floors, so it's hard on the dog when she had her operation.
Sure. Must be good for your overall health, though.
It is,
You're climbing up and down the stairs all the time.
Well, I make my sons run up the stairs if I need anything, and then I tell them I timed them.
Isn't that the benefit of parenthood? I remember when I was a kid that I'd be sitting down at the table, and my mom would say, while you're up, could you please get me a glass of water? And now I find I do the same things. Could you please go and do this or that? So.
Yeah, except the older kid says, get it yourself, Dad.
So you get some back talk.
What are you going to do,
So, how old are your kids?
I have 2 boys. One is 12 years old. He's the actor of the family.
Yeah.
He's had 1 major motion picture film role for Diverted back in during 9/11 when the planes were diverted to Gander, the hundreds of planes. He had a role in that. My older son is 15, and he's a hockey player. He plays AAA hockey here in the city with the St. John's Pennacon Privateers.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of weekends when I'm home watching games, and let me tell you, Daddy hates missing his son's hockey games.
You do, hey? Must be tough. It's tough to know that there are going to be times when you're going to be missing stuff for your kids.
It is tough, and that's why I make it a point when I'm home, I spend a lot of time with my boys, and they understand what I do. Like as a journalist, when I was a journalist, they knew that I was away writing stories or directing the newsroom, and they saw the results of my work because they read the paper. When I was on the radio, they'd listen to me on the radio. They know where my passion lies, and I talk to them about what I do. My 12-year-old understands what I do, so that helps a lot. They understand that this is what I've been driven to do, and so they support me, and I support them. And I have to say, it's worked out well because I don't know if it's a fluke or what, but they've turned out into two wonderful boys. They fell from heaven on a rainbow. That's what I tell people. It didn't exactly work out that way, but they're two good boys.
It's really good that you are able to have that kind of support from them, because it must have been a challenge when you first suggested to them that you were thinking of running for office. They probably had no idea,
what it would entail.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good idea. Again, as a journalist, it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Sure.
I was gone morning, noon, and night.
Sure.
I ran my own newspaper called The Independent.
Yeah.
So I was always buried in my work. Always had time for the kids.
Yeah.
But when it wasn't kids, it was work. So this is how they've known me their whole lives. So it hasn't been a big adjustment for them.
Yeah.
When I'm home, I'm with them. Or
do they go to events with you?
Some, but only if they want to.
Okay.
Christopher, my younger son, during the May election, on his birthday, he came out with me door to door. But I would never make him do something like that.
Sure.
That was his decision. And if they come out with me, usually it's always their decision. I don't want to force them to do anything.
Do they seem interested in it?
Christopher, my younger son, is.
Yeah.
We had the provincial election here in Newfoundland and Labrador just Tuesday.
Right.
And the fact that the New Democrats came that close to official opposition status, and we didn't get it, he was highly disappointed. Now, Chris is, again, he's only 12 years old, but I kind of like that, too, the fact that he was disappointed, and he pays such attention to politics. Not that he'd ever want to be a politician. But
no, of course not.
No.
No,
maybe a journalist. Hopefully a journalist.
So, tell me a little bit. You talked earlier about your blog, which is called Fisherman's Road, and that's because it's the road that you grew up on. So, was that here in St. John's, or where did you grow up?
No. I grew up in a place called Riverhead, Harbour Grace, and it's known for two things. Riverhead Harbour Grace is known for a boat that don't float and a plane that don't fly. The boat that don't float is called a Kyle, and it's an old sealing vessel, steamer, coastal boat. In the late 60s, she broke her mooring down in Harbour Grace, and she was blown by a gale up to the head of the harbour, and she faces Riverhead, a port that it can see but never make it to. It's kind of like the Kyle's own hell. She faces Riverhead, so that's the boat, and the plane is the spirit of Harbour Grace. Years ago, in the 20s, Harbour Grace was a landing pad for people trying to make these jaunts across the Atlantic. The Earhart.
Sure.
This sort of thing. So that's what Riverhead Harbour Grace is known for. That and the hockey player, Danny Cleary,
who's related
with Detroit Red Wings.
So at least one out of the three was a success.
Yeah.
So if you come from that area, why are you representing this riding here in St. John's?
Well, because most Baymen, I grew up a Bayman. When you graduate high school, you either stay and work in the plant, the fish plant, or you go away. You go away to work. You go away to school. When I graduated high school, I moved into St. John's. I went to school. I took journalism in Newfoundland, and I started my career with the Telegram, the daily newspaper in St. John's. I moved away for school. I moved away for work. If I went back to Harbour Grace today and walked down the street, I wouldn't see anybody that I went to school with. Most everybody has moved. Since the early 90s, we've lost 80,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians because of the collapse of the fishery. So
they're just moving elsewhere.
They're moving
other parts
elsewhere.
of the country, other parts of the...
Alberta.
Yeah.
Around the Bay is still doing well,
yeah.
where I grew up, but it's because a lot of people commute back and forth to Alberta, and all that Alberta oil money is helping to float the Newfoundland and Labrador economy. So we're still doing well, even though the fishery's not.
So Ryan, give me a sense of where we are.
We're just outside the Colonial Building, and the Colonial Building was the seat of the Newfoundland and Labrador government for 100 years, up until I believe the early 60s. 1949, we joined Confederation. This is where Joey Smallwood held his course. There was a big riot here in the 30s too. The place was sacked. The Prime Minister was chased out a back window, and he made his way down one of the side streets and got away with his life.
You Newfoundlanders, you're fiery people.
Well, I tell you, don't go messing with Newfoundlanders. That's where we get the name Fighting Newfoundlanders. That, of course, and all our veterans.
So you are quoted in some of the research I was doing as saying that you'd always had a dream to represent Newfoundland and Labrador in Parliament. Is that an accurate quote? Had you always dreamed of being an MP?
No. When I graduated high school in 1984 from St. Francis Central High School in Harbour Grace, I had a yearbook picture, and ambition underneath my picture in the yearbook said, journalist, not member of Parliament. And journalist is what I did. I didn't set out to be a politician. I think that when you hear young people say, I want to be a politician when I grow up, that always makes me feel uneasy. I think that a politician is something that you evolve into. You don't set out to become it. You become it for a reason. I did.
What about being in Ottawa? Are you able to have any kind of a life when you're in Ottawa?
I'm in Ottawa to work. I'm not. My family is down here. My kids are down here. My missus is down here. I'm in Ottawa to work. That to me is my life. I stay at a hotel. I get up at 6. I don't even shower at the hotel. I get up at 6 in the morning. I go to the gym in my office building, Confederation building. I go to the gym. I get a shower. I'm in my office by 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I stay there till 9 o'clock. I'm there to work. I can't wait to get home again, be it on Friday evening or whatever. I can't wait to get back. I can't wait to walk off the plane and smell Newfoundland and Labrador air again. It's different from Ottawa.
What does it smell like to you?
It smells like salt sea. It smells like salt sea. It smells fresh. It doesn't smell stale or stagnant. There's always a gale. There's always a breeze, and it's always fresh.
You live in a place that's got some famously interesting weather patterns. What happens when you have travel delays? Because you've already got a fairly, not a huge commute. It's not like a Yukon commute, but you've got a pretty good commute. And what happens when there are weather delays?
Haven't had any yet. Haven't had any yet. Even the good thing about hurricane season, which we just went through, is, and I mentioned this earlier, is the fact that everybody looks forward to hurricane season. Lately they do, the past few years, because the hurricanes blow up all this warm wind ahead of it and after it. So our best time of the year actually is getting to be later August, September. So fabulous. But they haven't interfered with my traveling plans just yet. Knock on wood, please God.
So when the rest of us see hurricanes starting to affect the Caribbean, we can start saying,
I'm putting on the suntan lotion.
Fantastic.
I'm getting ready to go out
in Newfoundland,
Labrador. I'm getting ready to go sitting on the deck and having a good time.
Do you play hockey?
I do.
So your sons play hockey, you play hockey. Do you have to leave that
behind?
No,
my younger son doesn't play hockey.
Okay, your older son.
He spits on hockey.
Oh.
He's the actor.
He's the actor.
My older son,
okay.
He plays AAA.
Yeah.
I play hockey. I started playing hockey when I was older.
Yeah.
About 30. And
that is old.
Well, I'm 44 now, so I've been playing for 14 years.
Yeah.
But when I first
Are you any good?
When I first started to play, after growing up, I skated on the bogs or whatever out home. But when I first started to play, I remember the very first time I played, I got the equipment from my brother-in-law, and I got on the ice, and I remember a guy coming over to me and saying, listen, buddy, you shouldn't be on the ice when you're drinking. I was so bad he thought I was drunk. I've gotten better. Yeah. I'm more of a grinder. I've got all this heart and passion. The soft hands went to my son. They skipped a generation. But
do you play when you're in Ottawa?
I actually got a message on my BlackBerry about 5 minutes ago, and our first game is Wednesday night. So looking
boy.
forward to it.
Who are you playing with?
Hopefully we're playing the Conservatives.
Okay.
I look forward to that game.
All right.
Although there's no checking and no hitting.
Oh, I was going to say.
No checking, no slap
Oh, what's
shots.
the fun with that then?
I don't know. But
Oh boy.
I got to watch myself in the corner.
So you actually try to have some semblance though of a life when you're outside of home.
Well, I eat and I exist and I work.
And you sleep occasionally.
And as a member of Parliament, you're invited to all kinds of social events.
Yeah.
And I'll do something if I have to do something. If either someone I need to meet or someone I need to have a conversation with for something that I need as a member of Parliament. But outside of that, I write, as a journalist, I write my own speeches, write my own statements, I write my own questions, and I teach my parliamentary assistant how to do this. I make sure I hired someone that I could teach. But no, life in Ottawa is work.
Yeah. This is
the real life.
Let's talk about nonpartisan relationships because, you seem to have come at politics from a fairly nonpartisan background. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, but as a
journalist, of course, yeah.
So you're in Ottawa, you're in what is a fairly partisan environment, and then are you able, when you go play hockey or, when you're at receptions with other MPs, to actually engage with other people as human beings, or is it all political?
No, it's not all political. Away from the House of Commons, away from the theater that is the House of Commons, if I'm mingling with the Liberal MPs from my province or Conservative MPs from anywhere, no, it's not all politics. We're human beings.
Right.
So we're having, I haven't met anybody who's not, I've met few people who aren't good people. So they're all good people. We have different philosophies, different ways of looking at things. But away from the theater of the House of Commons, it's amicable. I've met some great people. I've met some great people at the gym, for example. I've met some good Conservatives. Who knew? But I have.
One of the things I'd wondered was why you decided to run federally and not provincially. Because wouldn't it have been easier to run provincially?
Easy. I don't think I've ever done anything easy, my dear. When I was the editor-in-chief of the independent newspaper, we made our mark for a 6-part cost-benefit of Confederation. And what that was, we added up everything that Newfoundland and Labrador has contributed to Canada since 1949 when we joined versus what we've gotten back. Because for years, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were seen as a drain on Confederation. Everybody's heard about goofy, newfie, this sort of thing. So when I took over the Independent, I wanted to have a good, hard look at that to see if there was truth to it. And after 6 weeks, we did an exhaustive study that in the end was reviewed, for example, by the Globe and Mail. We found that, in actual fact, Newfoundland and Labrador hasn't been a drain. We've given as much or more than we've gotten back from this relationship. So I ran federally because I wanted to do more to work on the relationship, our relationship, which has its challenges. We've got 7 seats out of 308 in the House of Commons, and Newfoundland and Labrador is pretty much the little guy. We're the David against the Goliath. In a lot of ways, it is it is confrontational. Newfoundland and Labrador has so many characters in its political history because it's had to have those characters, because we have to be larger than life, because we don't have the raw numbers. We need the members that we have to be strong. Whenever I get nervous in the House of Commons, I say 2 words to myself. If I ever get butterflies, I think I probably always will. I say Newfoundland and Labrador, and I keep myself focused. I had to run federally. I've written about our relationship from day one, and it's the relationship that I want to work on. Would it have been easier to run provincially? There are 9 districts in my riding, 9 provincial districts in my riding. Yeah, it would have been easier, but I'm not into doing something just because it's easy.
You know what? I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It's just been a real pleasure to share a bit about your life outside of the political spectrum and show us a bit of your riding, too.
Well, thanks for coming to St. John, South Mount Pearl in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I know now you're not going to want to leave, but you also got a family you got to get back to. So thanks for coming. Thanks to the guys. Thanks to you.
Glad to be here.